All right. Intro still works, and we are here for a kind of a special edition Q&A. Mark called me up or texted me or something, but he just goes, I know what it is. We're going to do a Q&A on the JFK movie. So I did put out a little bit ahead of time. I went ahead, watched the director's cut, which I ordered on Blu-ray because I wanted to do the physical medium. We were just talking about that before the show. Mark and myself do recommend any movie or any media that has any importance at all. If possible, get a copy of the physical medium.
Yeah.
Get a digital too for convenience, no problem. But it does behoove you to have a physical copy of the medium. And there's a brand new version of this that came out in late December. I think you said the Ultra 4K Blu-ray.
Ultra 4K. Yeah, I hear it's. I'm going to get it today, but I mean, I understand it's devastatingly beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it on Blu-ray, and I'm like, it's good enough. I mean,
yeah, no, I know. I mean, I'm not, watching it for visual reasons, but it's good to have the new one.
I agree, and it's interesting. I'll be curious how they work the upsampling and everything, because so much of that footage he did with like 8mm or 16mm. So it's so many different stocks and mediums.
Richardson gets an Academy Award for cinematography. So it was nominated for 8 awards, but I mean, 8 nominations for Oscars. But Richardson wins, and then I think editing wins is 2 out of the 8. The editors, actually, there's so many editors that a bunch of them ended up in rehab because of the deadline of Christmas that Warner Brothers and Oliver decided to make. The movie ended in I want to say the very end of July. It was a 78-day shoot, but then they shot for Christmas, as a goal to get it out, which then they had to go berserk with editors just falling by the wayside, and Oliver using multiple editors and then replacing them and sending the wounded warriors to rehab, the guys who didn't make it.
Why didn't it come out on the anniversary, though? That's something I find kind of curious.
Well, they never could have made it. It never could have happened. I mean, they finished August 1st, the physical shooting. They never could have made it.
But the anniversary was like a year and a half later, wasn't it? It came out in 92, anniversary 93.
They didn't care about anniversaries back then.
Okay.
Yeah, they really didn't. I mean, that was something that he did a lot of press on, and he was reluctant because he was sandbagged, kind of like Garrison was on NBC. He said they did the same thing. What's his name? I forget the guy's name on ABC. He's no longer there.
Forrest
Sawyer. I was going to say Forrest Sawyer. Yeah, he was like the Anderson Cooper of his day, and he sandbagged Oliver. But I mean, if you look at 92, who wins that year? It's just crazy, because here's this masterpiece that's put out, and yet the winners across the board is Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster gets best, Anthony Hopkins, best picture. I mean, it's just crazy. It swept the awards. A glorified horror film, which they never, ever recognize. And then even Mercedes Rule in The Fisher King. I mean, just anything to avoid this massive 600-pound gorilla that was making money hand over fist for Warner Brothers, getting a lot of attention, a lot of media, and the Academy said, well, we're not going to add to it. The screenplay goes to Ted Talier's Silence of the Lambs. I mean, even he probably said, this is ridiculous. Best picture, Silence of the Lambs. How long forgotten is that horror film? Obviously, people remember Silence of the Lambs, but is it in the level of this type of movie? It's absurd. I mean, it's a well-done horror picture, for Christ's sake. It's a serial killer movie. And of course, Jonathan Demme. He probably long dead now, but Ted Demme's dead. Ted's
was it? And Ted is the one who parked his car on the top of a bridge and left.
Ted Demme, I knew because we did when I did the MTV magazine, we coordinated with the people who hosted the shows on the TV. So he and I had an interface on Yo MTV Raps, I think was his show. But yeah, I mean, best actors, Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster and Jack Palance from City Slickers too.
Oh, it was Jonathan. I just looked. Sorry. Jonathan did do Silence.
Right. Yeah. But Ted Demme did Yo MTV Raps. It was like a Nepo baby. But I mean, Jack Palance, really? Over all these people who were in JFK for City Slickers? Come on. Come on, Eric. I mean, it's kind of absurd now looking backwards.
Well, actually, it would be kind of hard to put up people for how many supporting actors could you put up out of JFK alone? Because I mean, you had Joe Pesci,
right? One of the models for the film. There's 3 models for the film. For him, one was The Longest Day, the World War II epic that had 1 million stars in it. Oliver said that was one of his models in terms of star casting. That he wanted to get 10 million stars in there, like the World War II epic, and then Z, the Costa Gravas film. Which also had Jack Lemmon in it, and Rashomon, the Japanese classic. Those are the 3 models for the film, according to Oliver. But it's kind of interesting because just to get into the background of the film before there's any questions, just to give you some background information on the film, which is really a complex story by itself, deserves its own episode. He buys the book from Garrison out of his own pocket because he didn't want anybody to know that he was doing this because he knew they were going to come from. He was at a film festival in Puerto Rico or somewhere in the Caribbean, and the agent for Garrison's book approaches him, and he buys it for $250,000 in like 1990 money out of pocket, Eric.
It's good money.
And his own money, so he was coming off a bunch of movies himself, so he had the cash to spare. But, he goes to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers agrees for a certain price to fund it, but then he brings on some heavy hitters that jack up the price, including Mike Ovitz, who will bring to him a guy who turns down the role, which is Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner originally turns it down. Why? Just because he's coming off personally 7 Oscars for an obscure film called Dances with Wolves. So he's so huge that Mike Ovitz has to come in and make Kevin Costner do this picture. But Kevin Costner's not even the first choice. We always do this. It's always fun. And I'll take the audience through this. Like, what if these people had agreed to do this film? And the people who turned it down are interesting because none of these are his first choices, Oliver. The guy he chooses out of the gate is Harrison Ford to play Kevin Costner's part. Harrison Ford turns it down. And he goes to another obscure actor after Harrison Ford turns him down. And that is Mel Gibson. Yeah, think about that, people.
I actually am glad it wasn't Harrison Ford. Mel Gibson would have been good. I think Kevin Costner did fine, though. And the other ones might have been distracting from the story. I felt like Kevin Costner was able to act within the story as part of an ensemble cast versus overshadowing other people.
Look at Harrison Ford in Witness. Look at Harrison Ford in a lot of, court criminal proceeding type movies.
Presumed innocent, sure.
Yeah. You're forgetting what Harrison Ford was like in the late 80s. Anyway, they go to cast the role of David Ferry. And the first guy he goes to is his buddy, Crazy Jimmy Woods. And Jimmy Woods tells him to go fuck himself. He wants to be Jim Garrison. No, this is a true story. Jimmy Woods says, no way, bro. He says, I'm either Jim Garrison or nothing. So Oliver goes, I can't cast Jimmy Woods as Garrison. That's too crazy. He wants to cast him as a character actor, which is essentially what Jimmy Woods is. And he tells him to screw off. So he goes to Willem Dafoe. And Willem Dafoe says, no way am I playing this pedophile a gay character, and Dafoe tells him to go screw off. Then he goes to the next guy, if I remember correctly, John Malkovich, tells him no way. John Malkovich says I'm not, and then finally to Joe Pesci. So I mean, people have these roles in their minds that are iconoclastic roles because it's been so long of seeing them. But these other people just as easily could have accepted the part and probably are quite reluctant that they didn't. I
always love those alternate histories.
Yeah. Well, they're not even alternate histories. I mean, they're just.
Well, it is if they took it in your mind, like, how would it have been? Would they have been as good as this person did, do? And
it's alternate art. I don't know about alternate history, but
Sure.
Take Donald Sutherland, who memorizes 12, 13 pages of dialogue and does it all in one take as Mr. X. That was not supposed to be Donald Sutherland, although he says that Sutherland was nervous when he did it because Oliver was such a 600-pound gorilla. The real part that he offered to was another obscure guy, and he turned him down. His name was Marlon Brando.
I could totally see that. Yeah. That makes sense. I just heard Oliver talking about how Donald Sutherland figured he was okay because there was no way that Stone was going to film more than 2 pages of dialogue at a time. But he just went ahead and memorized it anyway, just in case. And then it was this challenge between the two of them. Like, could he do it? Could Oliver do it? And
keep in mind, this is a composite, but he later produces Fletcher Prouty at the press conference in Washington and says that Prouty is Mr. X, and he throws Prouty to the press. I mean, if you want to read about the film itself, him being interrogated about his allegations in the film, you could look at that thing that Eric posted on Locals, the ARRB interrogation of Prouty, where he backs down on almost every single allegation he makes in the film. And that's a fascinating document that Eric put up there. The Gary Oldman, for instance, has such a small part in the movie that he says, "What do you want me to do here?" And he gives him a bunch of plane tickets, and he says, "Fly around the world, do your own research, goodbye." So he gives him these plane tickets, and Oldman just flies around trying to talk to people who may or may not have known Oliver Oswald. And then he moves in with Marina Oswald and her kids, and he starts studying her up close and personal as an actor, and she lets him come into the house. The same with, what's her name? The Polish actress, Beata Pozniak, who now does a lot of voiceovers for books, But Pozniak also gets welcomed in by Marina as an actress and lives with Marina for a short period of time.
Well, Oldman really impressed me because we've gotten a lot of flack about the Oswald voice. Yeah. Oldman nailed that voice. Oh, yeah, it's such an odd cant.
It's a Brooklyn accent. It's a Brooklyn accent out of New Orleans. I mean, there's a lot of language experts who've indicated culturally that the shipping lanes went from Brooklyn to New Orleans, and the accent became the same. Very close. It's a mush of a Southern accent combined with a Brooklyn accent. And every time I go to New Orleans, they think I'm local because of my accents. I mean, remember this for 25 years ago. So anyway, so Perry Russo, who is Willie O'Keefe, played by Kevin Bacon. That's another composite. But Russo is a right-wing homosexual, like a lot of these guys are. Like Ferry was, like Clay Shaw was. It was a cabal, in essence, of right-wing gays, the opposite of what's today.
Russo appeared in the film, too.
Russo's in a brief cameo in the film. But my favorite,
as the guy yelling, "Son of a bitch! I hope he died."
Well, that's how he felt.
I know, but that was kind of cool. And Stone went on and on saying that the guy was a total right-wing nut job, everything else. He said, but he was the most honest person. He said he was so honest. It's like Stone really admired him, even though the politics were worlds apart.
Well, I mean, look at Kevin Bacon. He expresses those same views in Angola prison when Garrison interviews Willie O'Keefe. He says they have to know that Nixon won that election, that Kennedy was a fascist. He says what Russo actually believed. And Bacon met with Russo to understand that role. But getting to the physical aspects of the shoot, which I wanted to explain to people, that Oliver paid a fortune to get the uncut, unhindered, unaltered Zapruder film from Time Life. And he goes out of his way to say that anyone who thinks that was altered, it had to have been altered after 1991. He said, because I paid a fortune for that film, and I guarantee you it wasn't altered when I got it. And he didn't go into detail as to how that was true, but he is quite emphatic about that being true. Then they go to Dealey Plaza, and for 3 weeks, Dallas fought him tooth and nail. Dallas did not want this film to be made. They fought every single day in battle. 3 weeks, he got cops to shut down around Dealey Plaza. He only had 10 days in Dealey Plaza. They were banned from using the 6th floor. They got shaken down for $50,000 just to put an extra in the window to film from the outside of the 6th floor sniper's nest. They took 50 grand off of him for that. They were raping him financially every step of the way, and made him use the 7th floor, which you and I went to, which now has crazy art exhibits on the 7th floor instead of the 6th floor. When he did use the 6th floor, they put a limit on him of 5 people. That was him, an actor, the cinematographer, and 2 sound people. Think about that. Think about that. For a film of this size, they raped and pillaged. Then he spent $4 million in 1990 money, just to restore Dealey Plaza back to 1963, to make it look impeccable. Every single thing had to be changed back, you know, to the way it looked basically 30 years before, Eric. So, I mean, think about that. So when he gets the 10 days in Dealey Plaza, he realizes he doesn't have much time. So he shoots it with 7 cameras simultaneously, which has never been done. Yeah, but then he also used multiple film stocks. Like you said, he uses Super 8, he uses 8, he uses 16, Super 16, uses 35. And all of that is smushed together by these editors who shoot themselves in the head after the film, because they have to cut all this stuff. And
how many ADs did he have to pull that? Because he had to have a B crew, C crew. I mean, to use all those cameras.
Well, I don't know about the cameras, but he had. I mean, it was Richardson's problem because the DP is in charge of all those cameras. What's his name told me? Mark Rydell told me when he shot The Rose with Bette Midler at the Hollywood Bowl, he got the 5 top cinematographers in Hollywood and hired all 5 to shoot the concert footage simultaneously with 5 cameras. So it has been done by big directors who want exact perfect cinematography from multiple cameras, not just coverage. And that means renting multiple cameras, hiring legit A-list cinematographers, which is what Mark Rydell did on The Rose.
Yeah, and not only just the cameras though, but you have to have an entire lighting crew with it, and grips.
Right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is outside, so he's using some of the light from out there. But nevertheless, the 78-day shoot is insane for this size of a film. I mean, it starts, I think, April 15th and ends July 31st of 1991, and then they go berserk editing it. But I mean, one of the unheralded roles, which I always thought was funny, I was watching it the other night. There's a scene where the FBI has a press conference, and the guy's speaking at this press conference, the one that's in the lobby. And on the right of the FBI agent who's speaking is another FBI agent who's uncredited in the film and has no dialogue. And that's a very young Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, well, that's like Vincent D'Onofrio was one of the witnesses in Dealey Plaza. So there's
no, but he's credited. I mean, that was he was already in Full Metal Jacket in '87. So I mean, that's Bill Newman, who has a speaking part in the movie. I mean, but I'm talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman is just a body standing there, and I'm looking at this, going, "Holy shit, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman." That's weird.
Well, there's so many people in that movie. I'm not surprised. What cracks me up too, though, is when he talked about it behind the scenes. He was like, "Yeah, that was my cinematographer." I think it was he put a cinematographer in one of the scenes.
Oh, he always does that. Yeah, yeah. The guy.
I think it was the scene where he was trying to trap.
Garrison, that's his production designer.
That one. Okay.
Yeah, that made more sense. I think the production designer was probably gay.
Well, so anyway, he said the guy hated it.
Rachowski and other people, he's used a bunch of his people a lot in various scenes just to throw a body in there to save some time. But it's funny because recently, and there's a lot wrong with the film, and he admits that, but nowhere near, like I was saying to you before the show, if you read the articles in the book, the JFK book of the film, which Eric has, you may want to take a look at that and get this film book, because in that book is the annotated script. And he goes into detail for the full script that's in there. The source material as to where he gets the script, and that's probably from the vetting from Warner Brothers legal department. But nevertheless, the articles are in the back of the book, and the articles begin to come out way before the film does, because they had stolen a first draft of the screenplay and were slicing and dicing it up before the film ever came out. And you want to talk about protesting too much by the deep state. It is insane. You would have thought that they put out Triumph of the Will by Leni Riefenstahl. And in fact, an obscure guy named Jack Valente says that JFK is the equivalent of Hitler's Triumph of the Will by Leni Riefenstahl. I mean, he goes out 7-page letter by Jack Valente, who is the president. The odd thing about Jack Valente at this point is, and Oliver took great offense from Jack Valente as opposed to the press, because Jack Valente was the head of the Motion Picture Association of America, the lobbying group for the studios. The idea that this guy would come out with a letter to the press comparing this to Triumph of the Will by Leni Riefenstahl was the most deepest cut of all. And of course, we know Jack Valente as the aide to LBJ, the father, quote unquote, of Courtney Valente, who's now one of the heads of Warner Brothers, who put out the film. I don't think she's still an executive at Warner Brothers. I think she may be an independent producer, but I think she may be an exec at Warner Brothers. I don't know. I haven't followed her that closely in the past couple of years, but nevertheless, Jack Valente at one point, just to digress, was used at a couple of points as a human footstool for LBJ. I know that's hard for people to get their mind around, but he, on occasion, when he didn't have a footstool, he used Jack Valente, who got down on all fours, and LBJ used his back to put his feet up on. Just so you know who Jack Valente was. He was most likely gay, and not that that matters, except that he has a child that through a marriage with a woman that LBJ was presumably having an affair with. That being said, there is nothing in there that implicates LBJ in the film, other than the cover-up and, you know, the covert presidential action member, covert action member 273, which is signed 48 hours after the assassination.
He skirted it. He skirted it a little with the confrontation between Broussard and Garrison in the film, when Kevin Costner said that there was a coup d'etat here with somebody waiting in the wings. Now, and Oliver Stone addressed the same.
Well,
he
is waiting in the wings.
But that doesn't mean he knows anything about it. Just that he's more friendly than the other. So he does everything he can.
Yeah, bends over backwards to avoid it. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And look, I mean, there are people who have since changed their minds about a lot of things, including Oliver. I think he's late to the game on that. I think he's late to the game on Fletcher Prouty. I think Fletcher Prouty writes a 9 million page letter to Garrison, thereby gets him linked to Garrison, who then links him to Oliver Stone. So, I mean, he then has all these different jobs, Fletcher Prouty, kind of like what we covered with Robert Fitzpatrick, Eric, on that episode, as a guy with 1 million deep state jobs, not unlike Dick Carlson. If you look at their careers, look at Fletcher Prouty, look at Robert Fitzpatrick, look at Dick Carlson, you will see the similarity I'm talking about. And that is unrelated jobs out of your purview and experience where you're the head of something. In other words, Prouty is whatever he's doing militarily. He then goes to Antarctica and he says in the film, it's suspicious. Well, under oath, he said, I made that up. It wasn't suspicious. I went all the time. Okay. This and that. He tries to frame Lansdale. It influences Oliver Stone in the movie because, like you said, there's that. No, it works. It works.
There's a lot of see Fletcher Prouty all over JFK. I was like surprised at how much he
absolutely. So that's his freaking job. What does he end up doing after that? Becomes the speechwriter and spokesperson for Amtrak. Eventually tries to sue Amtrak. There's no record of him ever having a contract with Amtrak. He then becomes vice president of a bank. He then becomes the editor of Scientology magazine. It goes on and on and on, that they're unrelated positions of influence. And when you see, but I love Fletcher Prouty, Mark. Of course you do. If you hated the guy, there wouldn't be any influence. Look at Robert Fitzpatrick, what he does, the head of Euro Disney, the head of Johns Hopkins, the head of the Chicago Art Institute. There's a pattern. What they do with spooks is they put them into positions of power in unrelated positions. That being said, I'm sorry.
No, what you said, though, is something that has come up before. A lot of people have asked about Scientology
Yeah.
and intelligence connections.
Yes.
You may have just named it right there.
Yeah.
Because there's some ways you're like, how in the hell is Scientology able to get away with some of what they've done in other countries?
Right,
and it's like,
right.
they're a perfect place to infiltrate, or help CIA out to go in countries and get info.
We don't know what the mission is. We don't know what Prouty's mission was with Garrison or with Oliver Stone. We don't know what Prouty's mission was we do know now with Scientology, because he was hired to come up with a story to prove that Hubbard was a secret agent. And it was thoroughly discredited by, what's his name, who did the documentary
Gibney.
Not Gibney, but the guy who wrote the book. Besides, Gibney did the documentary, but the author of the book, who wrote the major piece for the New Yorker, was the one who thoroughly discredited Prouty in regards to his gun for hire of creating documents that Hubbard was an intel operative. That's what they wanted, because Hubbard claimed to have had war wounds in World War II and healed himself through Scientology. To cover up that crock of shit, they hired Fletcher Prouty. Now, you used to say, well, he only did it once. Fletcher Prouty needed the money. Bullshit. He becomes the editor of Scientology magazine and writes for many, many years as the editor of Scientology magazine. He then moves on to other positions, UFO position about UFOlogy. These are jobs, folks. These are deep state jobs. Anyway, I don't want to get off the track on Prouty, but the reason I mentioned, excuse me.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. The reason I mention this is because there's there's errors in the film that only history can prove. And yet I said to somebody just today who's a researcher in JFK, I said, you have to have an open mind. You can't just lock yourself in. If you're in this business of JFK research, you can't lock yourself into a position, because then you're closing your mind. There's plenty of things I've learned over the years where I went, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Now I understand this, and I changed my position, because there's information being released. And one of the things Oliver discusses fairly recently, a couple of years ago, is that he was wrong about the 3 tramps. And now he, like I said on the show, he completely agrees on who the 3 tramps are. But look how much is dedicated by Prouty in that film, that Lansdale is in back of him, that Lansdale is giving this hand sign, that Lansdale is wearing a ring, that the 3 tramps are not who they are. It's all a crock of shit. But to Oliver's credit, when he learned from the reporters of the Houston Post who they were and looked into it and saw the arrest record, finally, wherever that disappeared to, he changed his position. Doesn't alter the fabric of the film, because the film has 85 million factoids that are correct and maybe 200 that are wrong.
It was a snapshot of time. At that time, his thought was blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when you're making it, obviously you don't know everything. And which also leads me to believe that a lot of the blowback against the film is because the people reviewing it and the people who are attacking it have never heard of any of these people. They weren't experts in the JFK assassination. When you're seeing Joe Pesci playing David Ferry, we all know who David Ferry was, but they never even heard of him before. You know what I mean? Look at it from their point of view, from like a deep state journalist or just a regular journalist who's reviewing the film or writing about the film. They never even heard of these people. All they knew was Kevin Costner playing Garrison, that Garrison had been discredited on NBC in a white paper written by Walter Sheridan, who worked for RFK, if they knew that at all, which is highly doubtful. They didn't even know who Clay Shaw was. The idea that Clay Shaw was a CIA operative, they wrote it, was preposterous. Well, Dick Helm said he was, 2 years after he died, which is, you'll see at the end of the film, but there's plenty of little facts that don't come out until years later, rightfully so. I mean, David Atlee Phillips famously wrote that despite all the crap, that Lee Harvey Oswald was not in Mexico City. And there's people to this day who will argue with me that he was in Mexico City. The head of the CIA, David Atlee Phillips, Western Division, Mexico City, said that Lee Harvey Oswald was never down there. This is even despite the phony photograph, the phony audio phone call that Hoover points out to LBJ. People still, including Jefferson Morley, to name names, believes that Lee Harvey Oswald was running around Mexico City. Well, let him talk to David Atlee Phillips about it, the head of the Western Division of the CIA, who finally said that he wasn't there.
Wow. All right. So just as usual with the Q&As, if you will, put the word question ahead of whatever the question might be. Some of them, we've got a couple that have come in, and then I see there's some super chats. I'll just mix in there. But Dustin said, question, what artistic techniques and storytelling methods did Oliver Stone utilize in JFK to create a compelling narrative about the Kennedy assassination?
Well, we just talked a little bit about that. The multiple film stocks, the recreations mixed in with actual newsreel footage, the purchasing of the Zapruder film, which he enhanced, which he was able to colorize and expand in terms of clarity, you know, from a 16 millimeter film until something you could see 35 as a transfer. There's a lot of stuff that he does. And then, you know,
real witnesses mixed in with actors, so you can't quite tell, because like D'Onofrio was, I think, the only one that was an actor, and then the other witnesses were actual witness.
Well, there's different. I mean, there's Beverly Oliver, the babushka lady. I mean, you know, there's Lolita Davidovich, who's playing her, being interviewed in the Robert Richardson style of cinematography, with this white light coming straight down over you. A lot of this stuff is developed by Richardson. And will be used by Oliver in other films with Richardson. But I mean, if you look at it, the Dealey Plaza segment of the film, you've got the backstory of the film jumping 3 years later. You've got the trial at the end. There's really like four parts to the entire film, and it's over 3 hours by itself. It came out originally as 4 or 5 hours, 4.5, and had to get cut down. The original script was 500 pages, by the way.
Whew, I believe it. I believe it. And that was interesting too. The Prouty moment. I did not realize that the John Larroquette, Johnny Carson bit was cut from the theatrical release.
Well, not only that, it was cut by NBC, and you just have the audio around now. The video's long gone. NBC scrubbed that. I mean, the Garrison white paper, written by Walter Sheridan as a hatchet job, who worked for RFK. No explanation from RFK Jr. about Walter Sheridan, who he reveres as a hatchet man for his father, as JFK's brother. Walter Sheridan writes this white paper for NBC News, and it's so egregious that Garrison contacts the Federal Communications Commission and is awarded 30 minutes of free time in prime time on NBC News to rebut everything that's in the white paper by Walter Sheridan and NBC News.
By the way,
but the Carson show, the John Larroquette thing was cut out, and I think it was cut out for libelous reasons. I think that was legal, kind of like what happens with Ruth Payne and her husband.
Yeah, it was interesting that he had conglomerate characters or composite characters, so it wasn't only her that he renamed.
No, I know.
He renamed others, so it was interesting choices. Why them and not them? And
well, they're not his. It comes from the legal department of Warner Brothers. They just go, we can't get around this thing because of X, Y, or Z. We prefer you didn't do this. And you know, a lot of times they err on the side of caution. He told me he regretted ever changing Ruth Payne's name to the Williams. Because he was afraid she would be litigious, but in retrospect, he wishes he had been sued so he could depose her under oath and get documents out of her in a deposition format. But at the time, he didn't have time to deal with it because Warner Brothers and the legal department were breathing down his neck. So you make choices, you know, get the film made. I mean, are they perfect? No. I mean,
no, that makes sense. Just to reiterate to everybody, I should clarify a little more. Don't only put the word question in and then ask the question, but please make them on point to the movie. It's not a general.
Yeah, this is a special only movie questions, people. Sorry.
So when you see me ignoring certain things like how many shots, this and that.
Well, while you're figuring that out, you should look at the part of Wayne Knight, because Wayne Knight, who plays Numa, N-U-M-A, who is a real guy in the Garrison office, is actually Newman in Seinfeld, and who actually they do a famous two-part reenactment of the Kennedy assassination with McDowell, the relief pitcher, and the hocking of the loogie back and to the left. I mean, one of the classic Seinfelds of all time. the link to all of this is Wayne Knight, who is Newman in Seinfeld, but Numa in JFK. Just a weird pop culture oddity there.
He's got to keep the name as close as possible. He's not quite.
But that was his real name. Numa was the name of the investigator who he's playing, and Newman was the character on Seinfeld. Just a weird, coincidence.
All right, so let me see here. Question: was this John Candy's and Brian Doyle Murray's first dramatic movie roles?
I think no for both, but.
For John Candy, it was.
John Candy, it was. I think. Yeah. He was nervous about the entire thing.
Yeah, Oliver said he had a really rough time of it because he was trying so hard, and he felt overwhelmed being around Gary Oldman, all these other,
who wouldn't be?
A-list big name.
It's odd. One of the oddities, Laurie Metcalf, who will later be on Roseanne, I think, and some other shows,
and Big Bang Theory. And
Laurie Metcalf will play no one. She will. It's a homage to female investigators like Sylvia Meagher and others that Oliver created her role as a homage to female JFK investigators over the years.
Let me see. Thank you very much, Lady Retro. Go back 2024. Cool that what? Groden. WIA was Gary Hemming / independent advisor. He met with Lounge and Walker prior, but what Oliver want him for? I'm sorry, I was having trouble seeing that.
He has a lot of advisors for a lot of various reasons, and he told me there were people that didn't even get credit. Hemming was CIA. He did have different stories about gun running with Jack Ruby to Cuba, an expansion of the gun running to the anti-Castro Cubans is really what Hemming knew a lot about, and I presume that's why Hemming was in as an advisor. There's a name that's missing from all the advisors and consultants, by the way, and that's Fletcher Prouty.
But both in the film and in otherwise. So
yeah, oh yeah, and they list CIA people in the credits. Gary Hemming, a perfect example, and others, but not Fletcher Prouty.
Mark Jones wants to know: did Hollywood attempt to blackball Oliver after the film?
No, but one of the I think it was Time, New York Times or Time Magazine said that the studio should come in and stop the film while it's in the theaters. That's how egregious it was. That they said, "Where do you draw the line? Why isn't Warner Brothers pulling the film now?" To no avail, because it was making so much money that of course, they weren't going to do that.
Well, you know what? At least back then they cared more about money. Now, who knows?
Yeah. No. He had his supporters mostly at Warner Brothers, who he stayed with for most of his filmmaking life up until recently. It was all Warner Brothers. I mean, he made money. I mean, Any Given Sunday is probably the biggest Oliver Stone moneymaker of all, with a black quarterback. In a film, NFL pulled their names at the last minute off of the jerseys and stadiums. But other than that, that was the biggest grossing Oliver Stone film, I believe.
Even over Natural Born Killers and Doors?
Natural Born Killers definitely took a beating. Doors made a lot of money. Killers did not. And Any Given Sunday was the biggest of all his films.
Okay, all three are great, but
yeah.
Question, Rebecca Hamby. Are any of the people portrayed in the movie still alive? Ruth Payne.
Yeah. Marina Oswald. She's alive.
Yeah, there we go.
The kids are alive. I mean, there's a lot of people alive.
Yeah, Garrison's, kids. And then the kid who played Garrison's kid is still alive.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Stone, who plays Jasper, I think he's got 5 or 6 kids, Garrison, but he puts his own son, Sean Stone, in there as Jasper, son of Garrison. I think Sissy Spacek is alive too.
Well, the actress, yes. The wife.
The wife might be. Yeah, I think the wife might be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Nain Rouge, does Stone list his JFK author sources he used to form the script? Yeah, he puts credit for both books at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, he bought them both. The Jim Marrs book, Crossfire, and On the Trail of the Assassins by Jim Garrison. So yeah, I mean, those are the intellectual properties that he purchased. More stuff coming out of the Garrison book than the Marrs book, I believe. But nevertheless, the Marrs book has so many factoids in there. The Rose Charme getting dumped on the road at the opening of the movie. I think that's what's his name's sister from Chicago. I think what's her name?
Doyle Murray? Wait, no.
No. The Rose Charme character. The what's her name? What was not Sally Kirkland? There was somebody else I was thinking of at the beginning. Maybe it was Sally Kirkland.
Oh, that was Sally Kirkland herself.
Oh yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a cameo. He had so many
it was Sally Kirkland, right?
He had so many people in the movie. It was frightening. It's like, wait, what? I mean, just full of it. Mo Bishop was Dorothy Kilgallen in the movie.
Apparently cut out. She made a cameo as herself and was cut out later. No, it's kind of interesting because if you look at the outtakes, there's a bunch of DVDs that have the outtakes, and there's an outtake with Brian Doyle Murray as Jack Ruby, where Jolly West is injecting him with the live cancer injection, and that's not in the film itself either. It's in an outtake.
Yeah, that one. I don't think that made the director's cut either.
No, it's an outtake.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry. Because the director's cut padded on like 20-something more minutes, including
that's not one of them.
Cut. Right.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, when I saw that later, I was like, I don't remember seeing that in the cut. So
right. And who is linked to Scientology but Jolly West, who fights Scientology and is a target of Scientology. So I mean, we don't know what these internecine warfare things are among the intel organizations. They may be something that you're aligned with that minute personally, or they may be the other side of you politically, at that minute. So we don't know. All I know is if somebody's a spook, I tend to disregard what they're saying because I am not able to discern, like this guy, what's his name, who was with Doug Horn, Bruno, who said Dino Bruscelli, whatever his name is. I can't discern whether this guy is saying the truth or not because he's a CIA operative. So I try to disregard whatever they're saying because I don't know what side they're on, and I don't really have the ability to discern what they're telling me is true or not. If the guy's a spook, he's a spook. And I tend to, not listen to spooks. They have agendas that I'm not able to discern.
And even those are adjacent, we are open, and we know that Tucker Carlson's father was a spook, and so Tucker's. Yeah, we like Tucker, we enjoy watching him, but we're never 100%.
Look, I didn't like him. For how many years did Tucker say assassination conspiracy people were nuts? How many people listened to Tucker for all those years, and all of a sudden he flips? Now everybody's going, "Oh, okay, Tucker flips. Great, now I flip." I mean, you can't roll like that.
Yeah, the very definition of potential limited hangout. All right. Aside from Three Tramps and Prouty, if Stone could redo the movie today with what he knows now, what would he do different, in your opinion?
That I don't know, because there's a certain amount of mistakes or lack of knowledge, forced errors that he has said repeatedly he could never cast that movie ever again because of how many stars are in there. And so that would be rather difficult to actually remake that movie. But I think he would expand more of Oswald's time in Russia because when I worked with him on Oswald, he kept saying that is a dark hole that nobody's ever going to come out of, and he's saying like, good luck, enjoy your research. But he felt that he couldn't even go down that rabbit hole with Oswald because it would have taken the movie light years off course. So
he said he was trying to angle 4 movies into one already. So I guess there's just too much data. Yeah.
And also he avoids again, which he said he would like to have not avoided, was the Tippit killing. That's not in there in any depth whatsoever, other than this Rashomon type recreations from multiple angles, which he does repeatedly through the film. There's a bunch of things that he didn't have time or the energy to do. The Tippit thing being one of them.
Well, that's where your Oswald script and the 10-hour teleplay would have given him the flexibility. I think, the story is so vast that honestly, a expanded
it's the only format. Yeah, it's the only format that would really work.
Yeah, even the Crown level stuff where it could be multiple seasons of 10 episodes or more. You could.
But I think the Lansdale thing is inaccurate as well. I think if he had more time, I think he would, if he had the chance to look at Lansdale. And again, the LBJ not being involved thing. I think that's another thing where he was politically influenced by himself and various other people.
Yeah, you brought up interesting points though about Lansdale though, because he never completely went there.
No.
The General Y. Yep. He didn't put Prouty in the, so it's almost like he wanted it and needed it, but maybe
I don't think he bought into it. I mean, he talks about in the book of the film that Lansdale he found a ticket to staying at the Texas hotel, an undated room ticket, that Lansdale went home to see his son. Lansdale quit in October '63, actually quit after DM was assassinated, who he was extremely close to. And Oliver says, which I disagree, that Lansdale killed him because he didn't get the ambassadorship to Vietnam. It's absurd. Kennedy told him out of the blue that he was going to make him ambassador to Vietnam. And then all of Kennedy's aides put the kibosh on it. And Kennedy said, I don't have enough energy to fight this battle, which wasn't a big battle that he wanted to fight. But it was Kennedy's idea to make him ambassador to Vietnam. Both Kennedy and Lansdale were both emotionally crushed by the assassination of DM. The idea that he would kill Kennedy for the assassination of DM, both of them were emotionally crushed by this event. The people went around Kennedy to assassinate DM. And one of them was Henry Cabot Lodge, who Lansdale never got along with, who was the ambassador to Vietnam. It's a preposterous argument.
Yeah, no, I agree. Keith Gardek, MG, love and respect you. Hunley, when are you taking the Pixies back on the road?
Oh, I get it. We've had that before, Keith. So thanks for the 20.
I that's not as insulting as other lookalikes, I guess.
Right.
Black or whatever. Question. Let me see. No, that's not related. And then we've already answered the black. Well, and then, well, if it's super chats, I'll show them. But how about Dorothy Kilgallen? You guys, you just love Dorothy. The Dorothy fan club.
There may be a David Mamet film coming out of her. So I haven't heard anything about it lately, but.
Oh, good Lord. Unlimited airtime to Trump to rebut the Democrat accusations. Question, who's Zachary Sklar?
He's a Washington political science professor who was writing a book on the assassination at the time. And he was linked. He's a professor of political science, of political history. And he was linked to Oliver and became the co-writer on the script. He was in the works of writing a nonfiction book about the assassination when the book publisher put him together with Oliver.
Interesting. Did the actors, e.g. Tommy Lee Jones, believe in the movie's premise, or did they think Stone was full of it?
Well, Oldman believed him. I don't know about every single actor. I mean, keep in mind that Tommy Lee Jones's roommate at Yale was none other than Al Gore. So I don't. Hunley's no surprise to Hunley, who's never surprised. Suddenly surprised by that, Hunley. Surprised that you're surprised at something, which you're never surprised. So I don't know the politics of Tommy Lee Jones, but for the most part, they all had various different takes on it. Some of these guys were conservative. Some of them were liberals. If you look at Ed Asner, I mean,
very
Ed Asner,
liberal.
He's pretty far left, Ed Asner, and he's playing someone who's pretty far right.
But Jack Lemmon is pretty far right, Stone was saying. So I got the impression that they were opposite, and he had them playing opposite, which was fun.
Right. I mean, he plays Jack Martin, who's an alcoholic investigator for the Ed Asner character, who is formerly FBI, as we did. I think, didn't we do an episode on him? Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Guy Bannister. You know, so, I mean, Guy Bannister was running Oswald into schools like Tulane and Loyola undercover to find out who were pro-Castro supporters in the schools, the two schools. And a lot of that's covered in my Oswald scripts, I think, maybe even in episode 2, that Oswald was involved in being run by Bannister out of that office, 544 Camp on the corner of Lafayette and Camp, which Oliver shows. If you want to freeze frame something of interest, freeze frame the bulletin board when Oliver shows the Asner ghost, the Guy Bannister ghost, and the Oswald ghosts coming out of that doorway on Lafayette Street around the corner from 544 Camp. If you look at the address board, you will see the detail that he went into, because the companies listed there are the real companies, and a lot of them are spook companies within the building. On the address thing on the side of the door.
That makes sense, and that it's actually really helpful in the movie, showing how it's the same building with the different streets. So you think it's something different. It's like, nope, it's literally connected.
Yeah, you could walk right through. And in fact, I mean, look what's there. O&I is there, CIA is there, FBI is there, right there. You know, there were times when all these trucks were lined up right outside the building, and they were loading in rifles from that office into these trucks that take across into their camps in southern Louisiana.
All right, question. Who was producer Arnon Milchan?
Okay, so he needs more money. Arnon Milchan had just started Regency, I think was the name of his company. Huge producer. He's a gun runner. He was involved in running guns to Israel. Milchan, big supporter of the state of Israel. And Oliver went to him to get literally double the budget for the JFK film. Milchan was later a huge producer.
Okay. Does the film delve into a Ferry, Oswald, Ruby, Bannister connection? Well,
Ferry, Oswald, Ruby. No, not really Ruby. Oh, no. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
A little.
Yeah, they're all there. I mean, because he shows up. Ferry, yeah.
Oswald was taken to the club with Jack Ruby. He was
right, but Ferry and Oswald are in Bannister's office, but not Ruby. But in the club, Ferry and Oswald, but not Bannister, are in the club. So I don't know if there's all four connected in a scene, but clearly Bannister. You know, he was passing out the flyers, Oswald, downtown in New Orleans by the Trade Mart, and that was a Bannister operation, and they said 544 Camp Street on them.
All right. Thurston Howell III. Question. Mark's personal opinion, who was the best actor in the film?
Well, I mean, obviously, the biggest role is Costner, but I mean, Oswald,
Pesci, I think.
Pesci's got that crazy part, but I mean, I was saying the other night, there's a reason Kevin Costner is Kevin Costner. And if you look at how he memorizes that closing arguments of the court case against Shaw, look at that, how difficult that is. That is why he's a superstar, and the others are glorified character actors, let's say. There is a reason that stars are stars. And Kevin Costner, as Garrison, throughout this film, I mean, keep in mind, he's got a fight with Sissy Spacek. His family has to be destroyed. There's all kinds of levels of that part that he's playing, including a lawyer, including a prosecutor. I mean, think about how many different hats he's wearing as an actor in the film itself. The other guys who have much smaller parts can focus on their little crazy crap that they're doing. You know, Clay Shaw is, I mean, the Clay Shaw character is smoking a cigarette and doing his little bit. I mean, even Sutherland, I mean, that's, you know, 1 or 2 days work, but the bulk of the film is carried by Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's underrated in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, he still gets paid, and he's got Academy Awards directing everything else, and he's really made a huge comeback with Yellowstone.
Yeah.
But I always have felt that he's always on the cusp, and maybe because of Waterworld bombed or something like that.
No, I think it's the sports films too, you know, that he played all those baseball pictures, and
he likes being a cowboy, and that fell out of favor, but now it's back in. Yeah,
he may not donate to the right causes too.
Oh, good chance of that. Question. Is the 4 to 5 hour original cut available anywhere? If I recall, the director's cut is 3.5 hours or so.
No, but I mean, if you add in the outtakes, it'll add up to what you're saying. So it's not all together, but it is on some director's cuts, box sets. If you add in the time of the outtakes.
Okay. TB, John Candy was spot on with his depiction of Dean Andrews. There's actual footage of Dean Andrews online speaking with that Cajun accent. It was not really Cajun, it's a jazz
There's some outtakes of John Candy in one of the director's cuts that are real long takes on John Candy, talking more in that hipster argot speeches, where there's footage of these effeminate gay young boys who come into his office with Oswald, and Oswald wanted to get his discharge, Marine discharge, rectified, and he was in the office at the same time. I mean, part of the backstory was that Clay Bertrand, as Clay Shaw, had called Dean Andrews to represent Oswald, and he had already represented Oswald, and Clay Bertrand was part of this society, I forget the name of it, the Mashinin Society. It was a gay underground society, and he was the money guy to get them out of jail if they were arrested for some sort of gay activities. So Andrews had been involved with Clay Shaw before that, and in fact was phoned the morning of the assassination and asked to go to Dallas to defend Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas. He will later deny that out of fear. But yeah, there's footage of Dean Andrews online. You could take a look how accurately close to the patois of John Candy, which I'm sure he must have looked at that footage as well.
Yeah, and it's, well, not exactly, but Lord Buckley, it's a little in that line of that time. Let me see. Question: was the babushka lady mentioned in the movie? Is Bev Oliver credible?
Yeah, she's played by Lolita Davidovich. She doesn't want to testify. She's afraid she's going to get killed. But like Oliver said, half of her stories are full of shit. She's a mob chick. She's used to hanging out with mobsters, and you know, that's who she was. So I mean, it's hard to tell what's the truth or not with her.
All right. Nain Rouge. Question: you said Dallas was forcing Stone to pay extra money. Could Stone's budget this extortion? Well, he did.
He did.
Did it cause him to go over budget? Not sure.
No, but I mean, it happens in every film. It's not just down. I mean, you get shaken down. I mean, by everybody. I used to be a location manager, and every time a film comes, people get dollar signs in their eyes, and they try to shake.
You need a permit for that, you know.
So we did a film in Brooklyn one time where we used a social club, a real mobster social club. It was a mob picture, and we paid some guy who was from the social club. Another guy showed up, and they said, he's not the guy. You know, you got to give me $1,500. And we realized that, how do we know? And then we brought in our own food through a caterer, and a guy showed up saying, you can't bring this food in here. This is, we run this area here. You got to get food through us. So yeah, look, it happens to every film. It's not just,
and some of it's a time issue. Like, you don't have time to fight it. You just, it's like, you just pay the check, just keep moving, because.
But I mean, $50,000 to put a body in that window. I mean, that's just
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
But if he only could be there for 10 days, and
there's nothing, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
What's he going to do?
Question. Here we go. Similar. Why does Stone avoid attention onto Johnson? I believe there's a snippet about Mac Wallace and the murder of the mini golf course owner, Douglas Kinzer. I don't remember that.
No, not in his film. But why about Johnson? I can only think that they're aligned politically. Yeah, that's been always my belief. I mean, I wrote a script for him about LBJ, and he lost his shit.
Didn't go well.
That didn't go well. But that being said, it will end up as an AI version on Locals at some point next year.
Okay, Rumble question here. The scene with Prouty is one of the best scenes in any movie ever. How accurate is it?
Again, it's not Prouty. It's a compilation of various people. You're calling it Prouty doesn't make it Prouty. And the facts of the case, I mean, all I can say is read the Assassinations Record Review Board interrogation of Prouty, because he will walk back every single thing, for the most part, he said in the film. And there's factoids in that storyline that are true. I mean, overthrowing our Benz in Guatemala is not Fletcher Prouty, it's history. You know, overthrowing Mossadegh in Iraq and installing the Shah. We don't need Fletcher Prouty to tell us our own history. I mean, there's plenty of documentation before that by CIA people like Marchetti and others who left the CIA and told us this stuff beforehand. It's not Fletcher Prouty so much as Fletcher Prouty puts the whole spin on it. The New Zealand Times story is wrong, according to Oliver. You know, that the newspaper came out before the assassination. Oliver says that was a mistake. That's not true. The fact that he was sent to Antarctica to get him out of town was not true. He'd done that before. There's a lot of untruths in there.
Wow. All right. People are asking about Freddie Prinze and his ending in the Zapruder film. It's like, no, it's not related, guys. I know you're trying to earmark it and say that the Zapruder film is in this film and Freddie Prinze liked it, but they're really not related. So
right.
These people are clever. You know, they're trying to angle in.
Very smart with their angles.
Question: why didn't Stone emphasize the limo stop, all caps? I don't know why. When filming the recreation, he did. He did make a special point.
He does. He shows a clip of the red lights on the taillights.
And he even stated it out loud that he stopped. Either a witness or somebody said they stopped. They have no idea why. And then parentheses,
the Zapruder film was altered. Really?
Yeah.
That's some leap. Nice try, Mike. Thanks for stopping by.
Anyway, question: did Stone ever complain of being bugged, followed, or otherwise harassed by the CIA, FBI, and military?
Yeah, when I was being tapped, and then my phones were being tapped. I complained to him, and he just said, "Get over it." He's had it his whole life, and I was like, like crying like a baby to him that my phones were being tapped, and he's just laughing. He's just like, laughing on my
finally
face. Welcome to my world.
All right, here we go. They say Tolstoy's fictional speculation in War and Peace lent actual historic insight to Austerlitz. Can the same be said on any level of Don DeLillo's Libra for JFK assassination?
Yeah, I mean, you could, because, I mean, DeLillo is using certain facts, and so is Stephen King and his crazy book, whatever that, I forget the name of his book. But yeah, you can executive action also, but I mean, they're nowhere near accurate of what he's doing. I mean, anybody could write a novel and fictionalize stuff. What he's trying to do is show you all the different theories in one film. That's kind of the way he's defended himself. He said the Warren Commission was myth and JFK was counter myth. And he's said that repeatedly. So.
And unravel. He tried to present it in a manner of saying, here is the narrative. Let's follow that path and then take the actual scene.
Right, but he does offer various theories. There's not one theory in his film. I mean, there's multiple theories involved in JFK, and that's why people get so confused over it, because there is no one thing. And he said intentionally that way. It's a Rashomon style situation where he's showing it from different angles, from different points of view of different people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say he even argues against it. Like Sissy SpaceX said that he is picking on Jim Garrison is just picking on Clay Shaw because he's gay, which is one of the major controversies of Jim Garrison. He had Bill Broussard arguing the counterfactual against it. So he did put in legitimate counter arguments at the time.
I mean, Boxley Broussard / was a composite of various people who, I mean, put it this way, Mort Saul went down and worked for him, was deputized by Garrison and became an investigator. The whole thing was infiltrated. His phone was tapped. He was threatened with his life. I mean, his children were threatened. NBC was running documentaries that he was insane. I mean, the assault that he took seems almost Trumpian today. And in fact, when you begin to hear, which I highly recommend, the summation in the court case by Kevin Costner, by Garrison, in the end of JFK, it will sound extremely Trumpian to people who are listening to it for the first time. Think about what he's saying and how it sounds and resonates today. It will sound very, very, very familiar.
I would love, it'll never happen, but I would love to see Oliver Stone do Donald Trump the movie. Just because, with his view, like he did Nixon.
They said that about George Bush. They said that about George Bush. He did it.
Right. Okay. Question: did Garrison? I already said that. Oh no, did he tie the JFK, RFK, and MLK?
I mean, in the movie, he says they're all related. He shows all three. Now, keep in mind, Garrison predicted the assassination of Robert Kennedy. And indeed, that prediction came to fruition, and it's shown in the film a little bit unfactually, because he cuts in the footage of Kennedy lying in the kitchen on the floor as if it was seamless, but it was not. They did not show that footage of him being shot. That was afterwards. But anyway, yeah, he predicted that RFK would be assassinated, and he shows all 3 assassinations.
All right. Question: how was Ferry fitted into the Stone movie? The Rose Charamay incident, the skating rink, caught in a storm on the way back to. You really need to watch the movie, because you're like asking us about 10 points in the movie here.
Wait, I don't understand. What's the main question?
Any link on Ferry as a getaway pilot? It looks like there's a bunch of questions about, was this in the movie?
Well, the skating rink is in the movie.
Rose Charamay was in the movie. The storm is in the movie.
Redbird Airport was supposedly where he was supposed to fly into. I don't know if he did or he didn't, but he was flying Clay Shaw up to Canada for economic. There was metals that were part of the embargo in Cuba. I think nickel was one of them that was coming out of Cuba, and Clay Shaw was ferried by ferry to Canada to arrange for contracts with nickel. I think it was nickel out of outside of Toronto to get nickel contracts through the trademark. So Shaw and Ferry are linked together pretty strongly, even separate from the assassination, that is. And then Ferry, of course, was a CIA pilot who proposed all these different attacks on Operation Mongoose, which he was part of.
All right. Was Clay Shaw linked with the Dixie Mafia?
I'm really sure what the Dixie Mafia really is. I hear that all the time.
I think that's more Arkansas.
I don't really know what the Dixie Mafia has or means in this case. Sounds like some vague thing. I mean, Marcello is linked to Clay Shaw. Marcello is linked to David Ferry. David Ferry was an investigator for Carlos Marcello. If that's your definition of Dixie Mafia, then Ferry is linked to Marcello and the link to Shaw.
And Ruby, potentially, for the other mafia.
Ruby was involved in running guns to Cuba, and Ruby was involved as an investigator for Nixon during a House subcommittees on racketeering.
All right. This is almost a repeat of an earlier, but was there pressure or surveillance put on Stone or the cast and crew from concerned entities? Probably.
I'm sure they were monitoring it. I mean, he was every deep state periodical from on down the line was writing articles before the film even came out. One woman, I think it was it wasn't the Washington Post, it was like the Washington Examiner, wrote a positive review of the film, and the editor said, I can't publish that, it's a positive review, and she resigned in protest. But for the most part, these negative reviews were political hatchet jobs, as they didn't understand what the film was about to begin with. They didn't understand who these characters were or were supposed to be. So they possibly couldn't even, refute it, saying like Guy Bannister couldn't have done this because he was dead, or there is none of that in the attacks. There's none of those factual things. They're just, he's nuts. The film's nuts. Warner Brothers should pull the film. He's a conspiratorial nutbag.
It's shameful. It's just
right. But there's never any factual attacks. And the factual attacks that do make it into print are debunked within a number of years.
Yeah, no, like Clay Shaw being CIA.
Right.
I like the way looks directly in the camera at the end of a closing argument, as if he's talking to us, saying it's up to you.
Yeah, no, he lowers the camera to eye level and he breaks the fourth wall. In the scene you're talking about, Kevin Costner in the summation in the court case, everybody knew when and Oliver Stone says, a lot of the critics came at him because the Clay Shaw case was lost. He puts the case in there. They know it's lost. It's absurd. There's never any reality that it's going to be won. That's why the Sutherland character.
He states it outright.
Repeatedly. He puts the Warren Commission on trial, not Clay Shaw. And it was just another feeble attack on the film, was that Clay Shaw was vindicated. He was not vindicated. He was charged with 13 counts of perjury. He was outed as a CIA operative. He died in disgrace. You know, the teeth were taken out of his operations. So yeah, he was the first and only man ever brought to trial in the assassination of the president, and that had a lot of legs. He was involved in the fascist movement in Italy. He was kicked out of Italy for being a fascist. So yeah, we learned quite a bit about Clay Shaw.
I do think that Garrison was trying to see if he could flip him. He really did want to go after the whole thing, and Clay Shaw was definitely not the top of the pyramid, but I think he saw him as a way to try to unravel the damn thing.
He made a mistake by not arresting Ferry earlier, by not arresting Clay Shaw earlier. But you understand, like in a lot of Trumpian ways, he was under attack by every single level of the deep state. I mean, the governors around the country, including Reagan in California, refused to extradite witnesses for the first time. The FBI threw him under the bus for the first time. The district attorney wouldn't release taxes for the first time. There was so many Justice Department, deep state things that it rings true to today, what's going on today. These things were never done before in 1967, 68, 69. They were never done by the Justice Department or governors refusing to extradite people for a district attorney of a fairly large city in terms of New Orleans.
All right. Question: did Stone have explanation why the Tippit murder wasn't really covered in the movie? Did it make it too confusing for the audience?
No, like I just said, it was too much for one movie. It's 3 hours and 20 minutes long, the goddamn movie, to go into the Tippit thing, which he shows from various angles. There is not one person who identifies Lee Harvey Oswald clean as doing the Tippit murder, which he mentions repeatedly throughout the film in various commentary tracks, but also the way he demonstrates kind of a Jack Ruby attack. I mean, I think that, like I've said before, I think that Larry Crawford and or Ruby were involved in the assassination of Tippit. Why? He didn't know, and I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. There's all kinds of speculation that, in essence, that's the Rashomon type situation that he's involved in here. You can use a Rorschach test as to Tippit's involvement, but no one's really ever put their finger on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, good point. And I think that as it goes on, Tippit almost gets more confusing because we don't really know if he even had a role. It could have been convenient. I mean, it could have just been a coincidence, like something else is going out of time is a good time to hit him over something completely unrelated.
Except that they're right there with the wallet at the crime scene. True. It's too much. Tippit was a setup, and my take is, you're looking at it as a frame of Oswald, because why would Captain Westerbrook show up with the Oswald phony wallet immediately at the crime scene? It's too much, too fast, too easy. They were framing Oswald, and I believe that Tippit was a sacrificial lamb. In that regard, he may have been a corrupt cop. I don't really know what the deal is with Tippit, but clearly from the people who were doing the framing, they were trying to frame Oswald in advance for the murder of Tippit. You can't have an Oswald wallet at the crime scene being shown to WFAA or whatever the Dallas TV station is on film and expect me to believe that just happened to be in real time.
Yeah, true. JFK is based on Garrison's On the Trail of Assassin as well as Jim Marr's book. What is your take on Marr's book in relation to Stone's film, and what is your take on Marr's?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the you have to have the Marr's book, Crossfire. I mean, it's one of the major works on the assassination. There's so much information in Marr's book that everything that's not Garrison related is Marr's related in Crossfire.
So it's a seminal work, I guess. So
yeah, no, it's a seminal work. Absolutely, you have to have Marr's book. It's definitely a seminal work.
All right. Question: do you know what kind of pushback Oliver Stone got from the powers that be in Dallas to make that movie here?
Yeah, well, that's what we've been discussing. I mean, the closest I could suggest to you is what Trump has gone through from the deep state in the past couple of years, but on an artistic film level. Infiltration, stolen scripts, articles, hatchet jobs, everything you could imagine they threw at him for making a movie. So yeah, there's is it the president? No, I mean, but it's in terms of movie politics, it's as dark as it could possibly ever get. But on the flip side, it creates new legislation. It creates in 1992 the Assassinations Record Review Board. The forced release documents are from the film. The Assassination Record Review Board is because of the film. There's a lot of positive things from the film and the power of the film.
Good points. And this is something I never thought of, but it could be very true. Many 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon credits. This movie alone does put Kevin Bacon very close to a wide spread of other actors.
Mm-hmm.
Never even thought about it.
I think it may be his first dramatic role too. I mean, he'd been in these teen dance, lesser dramatic films and playing a guy in Angola prison. If you look at the prisoners when you first come into that dormitory, that's the real thing. He shot in Angola. He will later shoot Natural Born Killers in a prison in Illinois, but this is Angola prison, and he does film in there.
Yeah, he said that was Kevin Bacon's comeback or come forward or whatever.
Yeah, as a dramatic actor.
Yeah, because then Kevin really did leap to another level after that. So good point.
Well, he also, just to get back to John Candy, he says essentially the same things about Rodney Dangerfield in Natural Born Killers that he says about John Candy, that this was a comedian who hadn't done dramatic parts before, was nervous about almost the same storyline.
Sure.
That he does with Rodney, does with John Candy.
Yeah, and I think that Candy's such a tragedy, though, because you could tell Oliver Stone feels it, because I don't think he lived that much long after this, did he?
I don't think so. Well,
yeah, this is one of his last movies, and what a loss, because I mean, John Candy really was it.
Well, if he would have met Trudeau years later, he probably would have had a heart attack anyway.
Why was the guy in the distinctive suit who held Oswald doing in the book depository 6th floor? Huh?
Why was the guy in the distinctive suit who held Oswald doing in the book depository?
I don't understand.
Distinctive suit. I don't know what distinctive suit would be. There's multiple witnesses who put Oswald in the lunchroom on the 2nd floor getting a Coca-Cola. That's Arnold and many other a number of others suggest that Oswald was never even up there, which is true because he does show Bonnie Ray Williams eating the chicken sandwich at the supposedly sniper's nest, which is not really a sniper's nest, and it may have been till 12:25 that he was eating that sandwich.
All right, Colonel Lansdale popping in. Seed for later. Love to see an episode about Hale Boggs' Nick Begich disappearance. Boggs was a Warren Commission Boy Scout. Wink.
You could say what you want. Boggs voted with the rest of them. It was unanimous.
All right. Let's see. Question. Why didn't Oliver Stone go into the Buell Wesley Frazier incident?
Well, it depends what the incident is. Again, the movie would have been 11 hours long. I mean, you're talking about 2 interrogations, he's what's it called? Wiretapped? When you
polygraphed.
Polygraphed, by Gus Rose, the detective. I mean, it would have really, gone down a long rabbit hole on Frazier. I don't know how far you could go.
All right, and there's somebody here. I'll disagree with this, though. I wish they would have went deeper into the multiple Oswald side of the story. Love Joe Pesci as David Barry, one of the best things in the film. I thought they did a good job of showing Oswald Oswald there. And
Kevin Whaley is driving the car. I mean, he's a phony Oswald shooting at the target of another guy. I mean, how much more can you get into it?
Yeah,
I mean, he gets David Whaley to come in there and play Oswald, for Christ's sakes. I mean, what's missing is obviously everything in Russia, but that's covered a little bit by the exposition by Laurie Metcalf, who talks about his trip to the defection and things like that in the exposition, where she's putting together the investigation. But yeah, I mean, there's big chunks of the story that are missing. But then again, it's, he wanted to have an intermission, and Warner Brothers refused. He wanted to have an intermission and have people come back for part 2.
Well, yeah, because they didn't want. They wanted to. They're already annoyed that they could only flip like what 2 showings in the evening.
Yeah.
The intermission, that would mean only 1 showing in the evening, and it wouldn't have made the money. So, from their perspective, I kind of understand it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we went to TV with the Oswald miniseries, because even Oswald by himself, I mean, it was 10 hours, Eric. The thing I wrote is 10 hours by itself. That's just Oswald. I mean, there's walkers in there, and there's other characters that interface with Oswald, but nevertheless, the stuff that I have, there's no Oswald Walker shooting in the movie, JFK, and I spent a lot of time in part 2 over the Oswald Walker scenario, including the Walker hearings and congressional hearings of General Walker. There's no room for that in his movie.
No way.
But I mean, he was aware. He was aware of everything. He knew everything that I knew, every fact. He knew all that crap anyway.
All right. Question: is JFK movie a case of telling what Stone knew or telling what Stone was allowed?
He definitely wasn't allowed. I mean, he did whatever he wanted to. I mean, when he was making Salvador, I mean, he gave the script to the Pentagon. He never did that again. That's for sure, because they wouldn't give him any U.S. armaments. They wouldn't give him any tanks. They wouldn't give him anything. And, you know, he said, you know, I've got a Silver Star and a Purple Heart. And they said, good, go fuck yourself. Who cares? So you had to rent them from Ecuador or the neighbor, Costa Rica. You had to rent the tanks and stuff in the Jimmy Woods movie from the neighboring dictatorship, you know, just so he could use, show the military aspect to Salvador.
Versus Tom Cruise, who was welcomed onto a Navy vessel, and they fly in the coast. You know, people have unlimited use of actual service members and shots, and they'll fly jets off for them. Everything else, yeah.
You could read about it in Trish Jenkins' book CIA in Hollywood, where she talks about how the Pentagon handles Hollywood scripts in terms of budget matters and hardware like this. Completely illegal, but they vet every script and award military equipment based on their script notes. There's also a chapter about me in there regarding my movie, The Recruit.
Mr. Tommy Boy, how did Garrison know the boys said they didn't get any geese? I think he just probably bluffing them.
No. They interviewed the boys who went with him. He had previously interrogated them. Okay. No. He had done that. That's why he slyly got Ferry over a barrel, because he says they didn't bring any shotguns. They didn't get any geese. That's why he's doing that to him, because he'd already previously interviewed the boys.
One thing I liked about the movie is while they had Ferry look ridiculous, they also said that he was a genius.
He was a genius.
Well, I'm just saying, but they did acknowledge it. No, but they were like, you know, and I think both he and Clay Shaw spoke multiple languages or something. But
he went to that ice skating rink and waited for a phone call, and then he claimed he wanted to buy the ice skating rink. And there was a bunch of different conflicting stories about the ice skating rink. He may have been waiting for a phone call to pick up whoever at Redbird Airport and fly them to South America. As part of the plot. There's various speculations as to what he was doing there.
Question: did Stone really support LBJ? He only lightly shows LBJ as part of a shadow government assassination.
Oh, he supports LBJ for sure.
He does, but he doesn't like him. He's made a big point of saying that LBJ was no Kennedy. So he,
of course.
He sees him as like a bargain basement guy.
Right.
And he even has
commented. Ask him if he supports LBJ over Trump and see what he says.
Oh, well, that'd be a given.
Okay.
It'd be more interesting to say LBJ versus Nixon with him. Question for Mark. Do you think the film was a positive or a negative for highlighting possible loose ends that need to be tidied up, so to speak, by those who could feel that way?
Well, it literally changed the law. I mean, you can't do any more than that with a film. I don't remember Executive Action, the movie, coming out with laws being altered in the federal government, or Libra coming out with laws being changed of the federal government. So the power of that film is enormous.
Yeah, and even if it was 100% wrong, it did get records released, not all of them,
of course,
but enough to further research down the road more than any other.
The amount of power politically of that film is endless. It's endless.
So, Question: why did Oswald get a gun from his boarding house, or did he?
Who knows? That's what they say.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know that.
I don't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. That's what they claim. Who's they? Who is saying that? The Warren Commission is saying that. You know, you want to have a discussion. I mean, they said that he went to shoot the cop in the Texas theater, and the firing pin was broken. Whatever. It's still attempted murder of a police officer. Why did they charge him with that? They didn't do it, did they? Where's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if he did have that gun and he did try to shoot a cop, why not charge him with attempted murder of a Dallas police officer in the Texas theater?
Especially because they were only charging him with Tippit at the time.
Right, right.
Because they made a big deal saying, no, we're only charging him with Officer Tippit.
You're telling me, based on their narrative, he pulled out a revolver, attempted to shoot a police officer in cold blood. The police officer claims that he put his thumb between the hammer and the gun and got his finger in there to stop the hammer from going down, yet they don't charge him with attempted murder of a police officer. Why wouldn't they charge him? Maybe it didn't happen.
Yeah, good point. But that's wrapping this up. We are going to be following our own Oswald.
What?
Yeah, we're going to head over to locals, and for those who are not aware, we have a meetup coming up in Youngstown. And I will have to update the descriptions because I didn't put it in the descriptions. But we have a meetup in Youngstown, Ides of March. It's March 16th, 17th. I have to check the exact date. But it is the same weekend of a primary that probably won't happen.
Oh, right. Well, just one last thing on this show here. We have a PDF of the JFK script that I'm going to make available for you to read if you're a Locals member over on Locals. So if you want to join up, you'll get a free copy of JFK the Movie, an original script that we will give to members only over on Locals, unstructured.locals. Oh, there it is, unstructured.locals.com for exclusive content, which will include this script.
Yes. Now, you won't, if you're not a paid supporter, you won't get the script, but there's plenty of free stuff that we do put on there all the time for those who are just members, not paying, including the last bit of this show. We're going to head over there, answer questions that people are asking on Locals and taking care of tips and things like that.
Well, also the first part of the Oswald script is up there, the AI.
Yes. And the second part is coming soon, like within a week.
He looks on the side. What's on the side there? Some ticking clock or something? What's over there?
I said end of January.
Oh, you were looking at the calendar.
Yes.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So I'm making sure that I get it out there, but it's imminent.
Imminent domain.
Imminent release. So
right.
Everybody follow us over to Locals.
Look, you'll get this over there. It's called the Untitled JFK Project.
Ooh.
If you want, and that's from a January 1991 version of the script. I don't know if that's the one I have on a PDF, but that's the one I was given by Oliver.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody, if you don't follow us to Locals, fine. We will see you. We'll see you on Friday for Free Friday.
There's a lot of news on Friday. Holy crap. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and there might be some news coming up here in an hour too.
Who knows what happens in New Hampshire? You know, this woman's going to run forever, apparently. Okay, so we're covered as much as we can. Then we'll have all these different secret questions over on Locals from people with more advanced questions and information that we'll give them.
So see you there.
Yeah. Okay.